Christ Missionary Baptist Church. This is Minister Obri Richardson. It's so good to have you all on this call. Let's go into a word of prayer before we get started. Dear gracious God, God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, we thank you. We appreciate you. We thank you for this time. We thank you for our pastor. We thank you for this congregation. We ask that you guide us through this lesson on today, through this session. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen and Ashe.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, your 2 minutes are up. So in one word, what is fear? You can type it in the chat or write it down. And then I'm going to ask someone, two people to share what they wrote from the first part of the free write. Paralyzing, scared, war, afraid, fears, constricting, yes, unsure, bound up, not knowing, yes, terror, that is good, yes, that's really good, unknown, yes, yes, unknown, yes, that's good. Yeah, that's good, you guys. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm laughing because one of my administrators from high school, if she testify, y'all, I no longer could be a minister because I was a mess in high school. We thank God for delivering power. Distress, paralyzing, false evidence appearing real, a notion of unsafeness, hindrance. That's good, Deacon Emeritus. That's really good. Okay, who would like this? Unbelief. That's good, Mom. That's good. Who would like to share? Two people could share their first part of their free write.
Is this the part for fear?
The first part. Anything else that's been on your mind you could share that you wrote.
Oh, well, for me, I'll start. John, I'm sorry. About discernment, I just want to be able to have the ability to discern, to understand before making decisions. And just anything that I do, that's been something I've been praying about. And you know how you always can have intuition, but that doesn't mean that, that's the right thing.
Right.
So just praying for discernment in this season.
Amen. That's a good one. That's a good one. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Minister Terrence?
What I wrote down is reading. I need to increase my library and do more reading because I'm not doing an appropriate enough reading at this time. So that's something I need to really work on in this season of my life.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Okay, you guys.
So Minister Richardson, Minnie Logan, I wrote hindrance. And the reason why I wrote that, because sometimes when you have fear, it causes you to miss out on a blessing that God has for you. You're trying to decide whether or not you're going to do what it is you know that God has told you to do. But instead of doing what God say do, you want to try to second guess God. So I start to remembering things that God had blessed me to be able to do through scripture. And that caused me to back up on my hindrance. And it's a blessing to be able to do that.
That's good. That's really good. Thank y'all for sharing. Thank y'all for sharing. So today's lesson is on fear. This is the second chapter in Jesus and the Disinherited. And as I was reading and preparing for today, I was like, oh my God, there's so many nuggets. And I was actually thinking about Sister Mary Jo, because she sent me a text last week, and I was just like, oh my gosh. So yeah, I'm gonna dig deeper as time progresses. But I want to as before we start, I want to also give the trigger warning. Every time we do have these sessions, I want to give that the trigger warning out of respect. So this serves as a alert to individuals about distressing content that could invoke traumatic memories or emotional reactions. For example, violence and trauma, mental health, discrimination, and hate speech. With this being a text centered around justice and speaking on the social terror that Black people experience in this country, I want to be make sure that I communicate and give space to the trigger warning. So for those who have read, what is something that you gathered regarding fear? If possible, can y'all go to slide 13?
Religious experiences.
Now, I have been told that
Minister Obri, let me know when I get there because I can't see the slide.
Okay.
Prior to Abraham Lincoln, the government in this country said it was legal to hold Africans in slavery.
Okay, right there.
Yes, and you can go to the next slide. The following slide. Yep. There we go. So we're going to go right into MLK speaking on fear, and I would love to hear your perspective of what you gathered from this mini clip. You can go ahead and press play, Pastor Stacy.
I'm sorry, you said go ahead and play it. I didn't hear you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Have you, during this period, which must have been one of very great strain for you, have you felt frightened and even very lonely in your position of leadership?
Yes, at times. I think honesty impels me to admit that there have been those times that I actually confronted fear. I don't think anyone in a situation like this can go through it without confronting moments of real fear. But I have always had something that gave me an inner sense of assurance and an inner sense of security in the final analysis, even in the moments of loneliness. Something ultimately came to remind me that in this struggle, because it is basically right, because it is a thrust forward to achieve something not just for Negro people, but something that will save the whole of mankind. And when I have come to see these things, I always felt a sense of cosmic companionship, so that the loneliness and the fear have faded away because of a greater feeling of security, because of commitment to a moral ideal.
Does that carry you as far as feeling total confidence in yourself? For instance, for better or worse, you've become the symbol now of Negro emancipation in the southern states. Now, are you an adequate symbol? Do you feel that you're adequate?
Well, again, I must confess that there are those moments when I feel a sense of inadequacy as a symbol. It is never easy for one to accept the role of symbolism without going through constant moments of self-examination. And I must confess that there are moments when I begin to wonder whether I am adequate or whether I'm able to face all of the challenges and even the responsibilities of this particular position.
So talk to me. What did you gather from King's notion of fear when it comes to his leadership? I know so often as the Christian body, we have this sense of fear of feeling inadequate when it comes to our call or to the call to action. So what did y'all gather? If anyone don't mind sharing.
I can share, Minister Aubrey.
Okay.
I was just going to say, I know this is probably going to sound crazy, but it was a little bit refreshing to me because I think that when we all, no matter how much we excel as it relates to academically, how we excel, no matter how, what titles we have and all of that, there comes a time, I think, in most people's lives where they feel a little bit inadequate or they feel like they have imposter syndrome or what have you. And so for someone, I think as anointed and favored as Dr. King to feel that same sense of inadequacy at times was slightly refreshing because it makes those of us who really have those similar feelings, recognize that it is okay for that to be uh, uh, something that comes. It just can't stay there. I guess that's my thought.
That's very good. That's a good examination of this video. I actually did not think of that. Thank you for sharing, Dr. London. Anyone else?
I got something. Um,
Okay.
I was just going to say that it's a natural feeling that God gave us, and that you can do it scared. He did it scared. Like he did it. The marches coming down here to Memphis, helping these men working in this facility. So the whole time, right, he had some sense of fear, but it never stopped him. So it makes me feel, what a very human person this is, if that makes sense. He was human, but it didn't stop him from doing the marches, making the speeches, and helping everyone, not only just like he said, Negroes, not only just Black people, but Black, white, brown, all people. And the whole time he had some sense of fear. So it encourages me. That makes, it may sound a little bit crazy like Dr. London, but it's an encouragement to people like us in these times, in this political arena, that if we want to do something, there may be some resistance, but we can still do it scared. We can still do it with a sense of fear, and it not be paralyzing to us.
Hey,
Thank you for sharing, Dr. London.
this is Jody. Two things stood out to me. The first thing was that his fight for civil and human rights were moral. It's something that video just brought to my mind or my realization, because we have the Constitution, we have states' laws, and so what he saw didn't fit within that framework. So it was a moral, I guess, guidance that pushed him to fight for these causes. And the second thing that was highlighted for me was when he said cosmic companionship. Um, That's an example of how his interpretation of, or his grasp of religion, and his interpretation of Jesus can cut through that fear. So those are the two things that was highlighted in that video.
Thank you for sharing.
Can I share
Pastor?
something?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Looking at that too, if any leader that's in a leadership position, if they don't have any fear about what they're going to be doing or what they're attempting to be doing, then they're becoming arrogant. And I don't think that Dr. King was arrogant in any way, because you as a leader, if you don't fear, if you don't have just a spirit of fear about what you're going to do, then you won't be able, you won't have the courage enough to carry through with what God has told you to do. So there is going to be some fear because we all feel inadequate about trying to do those things. But we have to remember that whatever thing that we have fear about, God is always going to equip us, just like he did Dr. King, to do what he wants him to do.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Next slide, Pastor Stacy.
Have you, during this period, which must have been one of very great strain for you, have you felt frightened and even very lonely?
Don't press play on the video yet. So I love that everyone's interpretation of fear. I'm going to share how Thurman describes fear here, and it blew me away. It blew me away. So on page 26, I have this edition of the text. On page 26, he states, fears are of many kinds. Fear of objects, fear of people, fear of the future, fear of nature, fear of the unknown, fear of old age, fear of disease, and fear of life itself. Then there is a fear which has to do with the aspects of experiences and detailed states of mind, our homes, our institutions, prisons, churches are crowded with people who are hounded by day and heralded by night because of some fear. He goes deeper because it has its roots deep in the heart of the relations between the weak and the strong, between the controllers of the environment and those who are controlled. And when he's speaking about the weak, he is speaking about those with their backs up against the walls, as we spoke about last week, those that are on the margins, those who are oppressed, the crucified. When he speaks about the controllers, those are the Trumps of the world, the Musks of the world, those who operate in power and use their power not for the least of these, and not for the greater good, but for selfish gains. So here he is speaking about that type of fear, and he goes into speaking of physical violence, and he states, of course, physical violence is the most obvious cause, but here it is important to point out a particular kind of physical violence or its counterpart is evidenced. It is a violence that is devoid of the element of contest. It is one-sided violence. And one-sided violence is basically mean those of empire are doing all of these violent acts. Those who has a certain amount of privilege are doing these kinds of acts. Yes, and this time he is speaking from a racial and class perspective. But if we move into the modern day, we can even look at it from when it comes to gender, about how men are participants of this violent act, and also women participate in patriarchy that has caused violence to other women. So yes, I'm gonna keep going. But when the power and the tools of violence are on one side, the fact that there is no available and recognized protection from violence makes the resulting fear deeply terrifying. Like I said, and also too, we can even move beyond physical violence. You got spiritual violence, emotional, sexual, economic, like you have all these forms of violence that are taking place. what is what is something that is spiritual violence that could that we could use in this time? Name
Weaponized
some
vision.
weaponizing religion. That is a good one because we're definitely going to tackle that. What about emotional?
Could it
I
be
think when
tearing
you're,
someone?
oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Dr. London.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I think when you're demeaning somebody or making them feel inferior can be a emotional violence.
Most definitely. Most definitely. That's very good. Well, someone else is going to say something too?
Yes, but she pretty much said what I was gonna say.
Okay, okay. What about sexual violence?
Forcing yourself on someone without their will.
Perfect, perfect. And keep in mind, because I'm gonna come for one of our favorite we love this human person in the Bible. So I'm gonna go back to that one soon. What about economical violence? We all have been victims of that. We currently are in this day and age.
Currently, the tariffs that have been put on all of the things that have to buy, like groceries and all of the things that are coming from other countries. I feel like that is a form of economic violence, having to pay, have to be the victims of that.
Thank you, Deacon Payton.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yes.
we live in a capitalist country, so everything essentially everything is from the gain for those who are in power, and to ensure that those who uh, do not have economic means, that let me take we out, that they stay in their place, economically. So we live in a capitalistic society, and so everything to me is in that vein.
That's very good. Capitalism as a whole creates all these things. Capitalism even plays in the spiritual, the emotional, the sexual. Like it plays in all of it. That was a good point, Reverend Cooley. Thank you for sharing that. Pastor Stacy, you can play the video now.
There are no major white characters in your books.
No. The Black narrative has always been understood to be a confrontation with some white people. I'm sure there are many of them. They are not terribly interesting to me. What is interesting to me is what is going on within the community. And within the community, there are no major white players. Once I thought, what is life like if they weren't there? Which is the way we lived it, the way I lived it.
Toni Morrison was born Chloe Anthony Wofford in Lorain, Ohio, not far from Cleveland. It was the Depression. Her father was a ship welder, her mother a housewife. The neighborhood was mixed and sometimes hostile.
People set our house on fire to evict us when I was about 2 years old.
Set the house on fire?
While we were in it.
Why?
So we wouldn't be there, so we would leave.
Chloe's father, George Wofford, had migrated to Ohio from the South. Experiences like the fire reinforced the deep feelings he already had about whites.
He simply felt that he was better, superior to all white people. His experience taught him that he was always in the company of inferior people when he was surrounded by whites. You know, he didn't let white people in the house. They came when he was not there, insurance men and so on.
Your father sounded like he had a tough core to him.
Oh, very much so. He was an ordinary man, but an extraordinary man at the same time. He was very clear about what the dangers were and very clear about what he wanted for his children.
Does your writing have a political point of view?
Oh, oh yeah. The truth I happen to be most interested in has to do with the nature of oppression and how people survive it or don't. It's amazing to me, particularly for African Americans, just amazing that we're not all dead. That's a constant shocker.
Paris is one of the few places where she has lived outside the United States, and she clearly likes it here, in part because the French seem more interested in her writing than her race.
When you know somebody's race, what do you know? Virtually nothing. You add to it all the stereotypical information and all the baggage that goes with race, but you don't know anything about that person just because you know race.
So I played that video because Morrison's when Morrison speaks about the white landlords trying to like use the burn down the house in order to get them out of there, that's a way of fear. That they're using that to put fear in them, put fear in the Black bodies in order to move them out of the neighborhood. However, what makes this also so powerful is that her father did not bow. He feared not. So that's why I shared that clip. On top of that, I just love Morrison. Morrison is just the GOAT. Next slide. Fear and intimidation. That's right.
There are no.
We can go to the next slide. That's good. Okay, so moving forward, Thurman uses the as an example, David and Goliath to show a form of one with power and one without. And of course, in this, he is using Goliath as a symbol of might, strength. He's equipped for battle. He has all this armor. He has the sword. He has protection. However, when it comes to David, he's just a kid. He's just a kid. He has the short shirt, possibly without even sandals. He has no armor, no sword, no helmet. He's just a boy with a slingshot in his hand. However, he's basically Howard is using this to Thurman is using this to express the controllers and the controlled, the withs and the withouts. However, if you want to go deeper, we can flip this on a gender perspective when it comes to violence and speak of how David, with his patriarchal power, takes advantage of Bathsheba. Bathsheba didn't give him the consent to touch her. He kills her husband in order to have access to her. She doesn't have autonomy over her own body. So it's that act of violence, not, oh my gosh, I forgot who. And then he rapes her. Talk about it, Reverend Pastor Marilyn. Yes, he literally takes advantage of her. This is an act of violence. This is an act of violence. Next slide, Pastor Stacy. Thank you so much. Then we go into y'all. I'll explain the Lion King because I know y'all like, why he got this Lion King video up there. Then Howard Thurman goes deeper and speaks about how fear, though it's birthed out of violence, it's also a way of safety. He speaks and he says, fear then becomes the safety device with which the oppressed surround themselves in order to give some measure of protection from complete nervous collapse. How do they achieve this? In the first place, they make their bodies commit to memory, ways of behaving that will tend to reduce their exposure to violence. He goes on to say, through bitter experience, they have learned how to exercise extreme care, how to behave so as to reduce the threat of immediate danger from their environment. Fear thus becomes a form of life assurance, making possible the continuation of physical existence with a minimum of act of violence. So it's that a lot of it's a trauma. That memory is a trauma, where you have literally picked up, your body is keeping score of what you experienced. So in order for that not to happen again, you are literally, this memory is resonated within for you not to experience that again. I love that he used this illustration. He said, children are taught how to behave in this way. The children of the disinherited live a restricted childhood. From their earliest moments, they are conditioned so as to reduce their exposure to violence. We've all encountered it. Let's stop here before I play the video. Name a moment. I'll need at least two people. Name a moment name a moment where you had to exercise extreme care because of the memory or of the score that your body is keeping. Sonia Blues Key?
Cornelia.
Yes.
Cornelia, I was gonna share. I was in grad school. I was at a grocery store. We were in a predominantly white neighborhood, and me and another classmate were going to a grocery store in an all-white neighborhood. And so as we're both coming out the store, we see this little Black kid running across the parking lot. And he and I lock eyes and have a conversation. And in our eyes, you could see we were both saying, didn't nobody teach that boy he ain't supposed to run in front of all these white folks? And so we just kind of, in that now we're in seminary, but we're just kind of processing this little Black boy running across the parking lot in all white, and we are terrified for him, you know, and are immediately thrown back into that system of protect your body, and are very judgy in that we're saying, why doesn't this little Black boy know that? And then who are his parents? They probably white, you know, just that kind of dual, both incredibly wrong, but incredibly surreal moment where we're wrong and we're right. We're experiencing it, and we're also judging this kid based on our own experiences, you know. So I thought that was really interesting, that point about watching over our bodies. Sometimes we police other people's bodies.
That's good. I was laughing because I automatically thought about, I think that's on the Kings of Comedy, when they said when one Black person run, the other ones run. That is because I promise y'all I'm gonna run if I see one person run. But no, that's really good. That's really good. I can recall there's a neighborhood called the Blodgics. I used to hang out there all the time. And then there was one time, like, it was like, that's the place you do not go. My mom used to drop me off there. I had to be in middle of high school or ninth grade. And my grandmother, like, my mom had told my grandmother, she was like, oh yeah, Aubrey's out in the Blodges. My grandma was like, get him from over there. You know, but at the same, it's because of that memory she has of this neighborhood. We're gonna play this clip because it brought me back to the moment between Simba and Mufasa.
Look, Simba, everything the light touches is our kingdom.
Wow.
A king's time as ruler rises and falls like the sun. One day, Simba, the sun will set on my time here and will rise with you as the new king.
And this'll all be mine?
Everything.
Everything the light touches. What about that shadowy place?
That's beyond our borders. You must never go there, Simba.
But I thought a king can do whatever he wants.
Oh, there's more to being king than getting your way all the time.
There's more?
Simba. Everything you see exists together in a delicate balance. As king, you need to understand that balance and respect all the creatures, from the crawling ant to the leaping antelope.
But Dad, don't we eat the antelope?
Yes, Simba, but let me explain. When we die, our bodies become the grass, and the antelope eat the grass. And so, we are all connected in the great circle of life.
So I thought this was a powerful moment because, you know, he's providing, Mufasa is speaking from a memory of himself, how also he's giving a warning to Simba about, hey, you don't go to that shadowy place. You don't do that. You don't go over there. We've all had those moments. Anybody would like to speak on their perspective of the video? We can move on to the next slide. Thank you, Pastor Stacy.
Look, Simba.
He then goes on to speak about how segregation plays a role in fear. So he speaks about segregation can apply only to a relationship involving the weak and the strong. Remind the weak, the Black body, the woman, the queer person, the differently abled person, compared to this white person, this heteronormative person, this person that has, you know, that is able-bodied, and so forth, so on. Let's continue. For it means that limitations are arbitrarily set up, which in the course of time tend to become fixed and to seem normal in governing the etiquette between the two groups. A peculiar characteristic of segregation is the ability of the stronger to shuttle back and forth between the prescribed areas with complete immunity and a kind of mutuality tactic sanction, while the position of the weaker, on the other hand, is quite definitely fixed and frozen. So he provides two examples about how he used an example from a moment that he experienced on the train where the person that could work on the train, that works on the train, could literally, a Black person that works on the train can serve on there. However, he does not have access to sit in all the sections of the train. He can only sit in the one section of the train. However, when it comes to that white body, that white person have access to do any and go anywhere on that train. When it comes to the church, he speaks about growing up in Florida and where white people can just come into their sanctuary and do whatever they want. However, it just did not roll that way it just did not roll that way when it came to Black people entering white spaces. And that's how it is today. Like the Stand Your Ground law. There's a book by Kelly Brown Douglas who did the second forward in this book called Stand Your Ground. And she speaks about how that law was set up to protect white people when it comes to killing marginalized individuals, specifically Black folk. That book was, I want to say that's 2015, is right after the Trayvon Martin verdict. Let's go forward. Most of the accepted social behavior patterns assume segregation to be normal. If normal, then correct. If correct, then moral. If moral, then religious. Religion is thus made a defender and a guarantor of the presumptions. And I was speaking about how he's speaking about how, from anything can transpire and white supremacy will literally build something to make it a normal thing, which leads to it being the correct way, which becomes a moral act, which become a religious practice. So even when it comes to beliefs, there's one belief where, where it speaks about the how to be broken in order God to use you. You have to be broken so I can do what I can do with you. That comes from a theological perspective of the enslaver. The enslaver would break the enslaved in order to get his point across, so he'll be able to do with that slave what he wanted to do with that slave. However, what they did, they have made that a religious practice, which calls us to believe that it's okay. White supremacy will build an ideology to make you believe that it's okay to be abused by God, when really God is not the God who we worship, but it's the God of white supremacy. Any questions?
It's funny that, we're talking about this, because even like today, I can remember, not literally like today, but I can remember a former boss actually telling me that, I got to break you in order for you to become the person that you need to be in a leader, or as a leader. And at that time, I just looked, because I was kind of confused. I'm like, what do you mean you got to break me? I became defensive at that point, because no, you can't break me. I am who I am. But I could start seeing little things that the person was doing to try to break me. And I really literally had to get away, because I'm like, no, yeah, I'm Kim. You're not going to do that to me. And so it's just funny, like this was really going on then, and how even now, that's how some leaders think, like I got to break you in order for you to be a certain way.
Yes, most definitely. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Pastor Marilyn, I'm not gonna lie, I thought you was gonna come through for me on this one. I was like, I'm ready, but I feel like you're gonna speak on this next slide for sure. Can we go to the next slide, Pastor Stacy? So here, he speaks about how they have made the normacy of God to be this white figure. And basically, God is this white man. He sits on this white throne with bright and white light, like he got the angels with the blonde hair, everything is just handy that they romanticize this Jesus. However, Satan is deemed as dark. Black as amp, as they would say. And black as amp is basically a scary and evil creative creature or demon, often linked to feelings of hatred and cruelty, and described as a mischievous being. Who is it? The philosopher, it's a Greek philosopher by the name of Plato. He created this theory on beauty, where white is pure, white is beautiful. However, dark is demonic, dark is ugly. But this is what and we have, unfortunately, many of us have perpetrated such behaviors when it comes to colorism. So many of us have grown, we'll call somebody, hey, what's up, light bright? Or, what's up, so-and-so, because we have been conditioned, socially tutored to operate in this manner. And he goes on to say this as well, too, that, this this is unfair to operate in this way, because not only that it makes you feel disliked, but you end up disliking yourself. So many of us have an issue with Black Jesus because we've been taught to hate ourselves. You can play that clip, Pastor Stacy.
Mama, couldn't we at least let Black Jesus hang alongside?
Forget it. The only Jesus I know is him, and the one thing he don't need is a partner.
Mama, how do we know Jesus wasn't black? He could have been from the lost tribe of Israel. They were supposed to be black.
I bet they were. If ever people were lost, we're it.
Now just hush up, both of you. This picture has been in my family for as long as I can remember. When I was a baby, I don't know what I saw first. My mama, my papa, or this Jesus. Now, he's the one I know and love, so let's close the subject. Jesus was black, the Bible would have said so.
But it does say so.
What are you talking about?
I read about it. It's in Revelation chapter 1, verse 14. I read about it in Muhammad Speaks. It says, his hair is like wool, and his eyes are like flame of fire.
Well, Lord have mercy. It sure do say that, don't it?
And see, Mama, look at her hair, like wool, ain't it? And look at them eyes, red like fire.
Yeah, they sure is. Julie, how come you decided to paint this?
I don't know. All of a sudden, I just had divine thoughts on my mind.
And for JJ, that's a first.
What, having divine thoughts?
No, having a mind.
I guess I ought to be grateful for JJ having Jesus on his mind in any color.
Then we can hang him on the wall, Mama?
Well, now,
Please, Mama.
All right. But just for Black History Week. After that, he comes down.
It's a classic. I'm just letting y'all know that's like classic television for sure. Share me your thoughts. Share your thoughts with me.
Okay, so I
Yes,
just want to
Richard.
speak. Oh, so I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Pastor Marilyn, after that, Reverend Mary Jo.
Okay, me first? Okay.
Mm.
Okay, so, it's interesting because I think it's because we have adopted these images and the perception that Black is evil. It's dark, it's dreary, and we not just use it in religious circles or spiritual talk. We talk about it as if we are the devil ourselves, as is, the little sayings we said as kids. If you white, you're right. If you're whatever they were, yellow, you're mellow. If you're brown, come around. All of the sayings that we said as kids, we've been socialized in many ways to believe that there is something wrong with being Black, and not just the color, but the people. And so to hear all of these things, the white Jesus that hung in our house, I think about the American Baptist College and National Baptist Convention that built that $12 million sanctuary in Nashville. And the first thing they did is painted a white Jesus on the back wall when they were dedicated. And one of the preachers got up and said, the first order of business ought to be to take white Jesus off the wall, because this doesn't represent who we are, and Jesus wasn't white. And I don't think we go far enough to understand how socialized we are. Devil's food cake, angel food cake, and chocolate and white, and all of the implications. We have truly been socialized to believe these images. But in other countries, this is the thing that gets me. If we travel, Mary is Black. The Madonna is Black. But in America, because of Jim Crow, because Black people are thought to be inferior, all of these images that are embedded in us are that we are the inferior ones. So yeah, I talk about it, and I say this, and I'm gonna set this down. Growing up, we had the Heritage Bible. Somebody came through the neighborhood with selling Heritage Bible, which is a great big red Bible with all Black images. This was in the mid 70s, and my parents bought one. And so in my house growing up, Jesus was Black.
Love it. Love it. Thank you for sharing, Pastor Marilyn. I knew that was gonna get that prophetic fire to that Marilyn Jones.
Hey, I love this section of the reading. One of the things I was thinking about,
Couldn't we at least let Black Jesus hang around?
how missionaries would go to foreign lands, I think particularly of Africa, and how they had to justify all the wealth and plundering that was taking place. And this whole piece on socially accepted behaviors, that segregation becomes normal. If normal, then it becomes correct. If correct, it becomes moral. If moral, then religious. And just how profound it is for the segregation to create that separation and just create, an acceptable way of harming and hurting other people.
Yes. Yes. And what's so bad is like even now in Ghana, you will see images of white Jesus in
Yes.
Ghana.
Yes. And whitening cream all over the place.
All over the place.
Yes.
But this should also let us know, Kelly Brown Douglas mentions this in her book called Resurrection of Hope. Was released in 2022, where she speaks of that whiteness is not limited to being biological. It's a sociological aspect. So just because your pigmentation is dark does not mean that you do not participate in the whiteness. I used to always, when I was working on my master's, I used to tell my friends all the time in seminary, when they'll say something that was so anti-Black, I'd be like, hey, check your whiteness, because at the end of the day, we're operating such. Social hierarchies is a part of that. So yes, it's a huge thing. It's a huge thing. I was thinking about there's a book by the late Reverend Dr. William Augustus Jones, who was a pastor in New York. And in 1979, he wrote a book called God in the Ghetto. And he speaks on how white supremacy has turned Christianity as a way to condition people and has categorized Blackness and marginalized persons as less than others. And so basically, he will say your theology determines your anthropology, which determines your sociology. So your theology, which is how you see God, determines how you see people, which is your anthropology, and which your sociology is, which will teach you how to order your society. I'll say that one more time. Theology, how do you see God? Which leads to anthropology, how do you see people? Which will lead you to construct your sociology, which how you would order your society. But this is that type of thinking that has caused a lot of self-hatred, but also dislike towards others. I think we have one more slide. Is this helping y'all? Praise God. So the question that was asked, in this close to the end of the chapter is there any help to be found for the disinherited, which is those with their backs up against the wall? Is there any help to be found for the disinherited in the religion of Jesus? That's one question. Did Jesus deal with this kind of fear? If so, how did he do it? So we can just speak on him operating when he gave his initial sermon. The Lord has anointed me and appointed me to go to set the captives free, to proclaim good news to the poor, but also too, Jesus also told us to fear not. Fear not. There's a quote by Dr. Daniel Black, who's a professor at Clark Atlanta at Morehouse. He wrote a book called Perfect Peace. I encourage everyone to read that book. It's a powerful read. He said, don't give others the power to destroy you, little brother. And I just added sister and sibling to create an inclusive space, because they'll take it. Your fear is their invitation. Your fear is their invitation. So I encourage you, don't be scared in the anti-Black society. But as they say, fight the good fight. Fight the good fight. I have to end it with Bishop Yvette Flunder. Bishop Yvette Flunder has this saying she said, I love to tell people that I am a disciple of a heretic, because that's how they describe Jesus. He was a heretic because he operated in a way that contested normativity.
I'm going to trust God. And if I perish, I perish. Tell your neighbor, I won't be scared. Not going to live scared. I said I'm not going to live scared. I said I won't be scared. I won't be scared. I'm not going to live my life afraid. I said, well, if you're not scared, you could die. I said, so? Okay, so when we get that out the way, then what? I won't live afraid. Say, well, I don't have a job. Don't be afraid, man. I don't know how I'm going to live. Don't be afraid. I don't know how I'm going to make it from paycheck to paycheck. Don't be afraid. Because the God we serve is able and well able to do exceeding abundantly above all we can ask or think. There is a shift.
There is a shift.
Woo! Now that we've surprised, or rather we have survived doomsday. Don't be surprised what the next great thing is that God will do. Tell your neighbor again, I don't care how it looks. It's working out for your good. I said it's working out. Good. There's a songwriter that wrote a song. Can I just leave you a lyric? And then we're going to go home together.
Don't be afraid. Sister Mary Jo, you have a question?
No, I had my hand still up. But
I'm going to trust God. I'm going to trust God.
But I am thinking about this whole question of what does Jesus have to say to those who are in fear? And I think that's just such a profound question. And I was thinking about how he answers that having a relationship with God gives you a sense of self that the world has taken away from you by being afraid. And that, I don't know, that just really hit me and spoke to me. those words from this many years ago still speaking to me today. So.
Oh, I know what section that you're referring to. In my book, I had put a side note, Toni Morrison's quote, where Toni Morrison in her book Paradise, she mentions there's this conversation going on between a pastor, a conservative pastor that operates under Europeanized theology, and you have this other young revolutionary preacher who comes in and literally contests all those notions that he has encountered with the conservative preacher. I've had conversations with some scholars, and I'm like, I truly believe that this revolutionary preacher, she definitely was studying Jeremiah Wright, because a lot of things that she was stating in his character gave Wright all the way. But the quote says, God is not only interested in you, God is you. God is not only interested in you, God is you. Yeah. So as y'all go about the rest of y'all week, let's not operate in fear in the midst of an anti-Black society. May we carry God with the God within us as we move forward. Let's go into a word of prayer. Dear gracious God, we thank you for another day of life and favor and opportunity. We ask that you continue to give us a spirit of discernment as we navigate this world, this anti-Black world, this world of enviness and violence. We ask you to cover each and every person on this call and those that were unable to make this session on the day. Cover our pastor, cover our church, cover our community, cover this nation, and continue to guide us and keep us. It's in your name we pray this prayer. Ashe and amen. Go in peace.
Outstanding. Thank you. So good.
Thank you.
Thank you for your study, Master Obri.
Thank you.